to the Shop, episode 219, Building a Winning Food Program with Marilei Denila of Go Get 'em Tiger. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad that you decided to be here and listen to this episode. It's going to be a really good one. The huge subject, food in the cafe. So I can't wait to introduce you to our guest, and the content is just out of this world. So looking forward to that. Now, if you haven't yet subscribed to Keys to the Shop, I would encourage you just to hit that subscribe button. You'll always be updated with new episodes. And also, as a reminder, share these episodes with a friend. If you hear something being said or it's a really compelling topic and you know somebody who could benefit from it, just share these over social media, share them through email or wherever, and spread the love. Thank you so much for doing that. And I wanted to remind you also that Keys to the Shop has founded a online community over on the Mighty Networks platform. So the Keys to the Shop community there is a group of like-minded coffee professionals who are there to help each other succeed in specialty coffee, to help offer solutions and ask questions and start conversations around certain topics. So owners, trainers, managers, operators of all stripes, coffee professionals in the coffee shop. This community is being built for you. Slowly but surely, we're building this thing, and I hope that I will see you there. In order to get into that, it's easy. You just follow the link in the show notes, or just email me, Chris@Keys2the Shop, and I would happily send you an invitation. So hope to see you there. Now, today's episode is brought to you by the amazing Prima Coffee. So Prima Coffee is a specialty coffee equipment supplier, one of the world's best, in fact, because they curate the best equipment from all over the world and fit it perfectly with the needs of their customers. So if you're looking for commercial coffee equipment like espresso machines, grinders, brewers, or things like under-counter refrigeration, the whole gamut of what kind of commercial equipment you could need, Prima Coffee has. They work hard to provide you with that equipment, but with coffee equipment and coffee knowledge. If you go to the website, prima-coffee.com, they offer a great resource in the form of videos and articles to help you be successful in specialty coffee. And you know what? That really is why they exist, to help people succeed in specialty coffee, equip them for success. So if you're in the market for commercial equipment and you want to partner with amazing people that do amazing work, then I say look no further than Prima Coffee. Go visit them at their website. Again, that's prima-coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the leaders in plant-based performance beverages. Of course, this is the Pacific Barista Series, the choice of professional baristas everywhere. In fact, this was made for professional baristas and with a lot of feedback from the barista community. They hardly make a move without consulting the community that's going to be using the product. That just makes sense, right? So that you know when you get it on the bar, it's going to perform. That's why it's called a performance beverage. So whether you choose the almond, soy, coconut, rice, oat, hemp, or whatever in the line of the Barista Series, you know that you'll get an amazing silky texture that's great for latte art, something that stands up to the heat from steaming, and also the flavor balance of the final beverage. It's not overwhelmingly like the milk. It is a balance. It's focused on the coffee. And that's really important, all those things for your customers. And I really think it'll set your plant-based beverage options apart. So if you want the best for your customers, plant-based options in your cafe, then I definitely recommend Pacific's Barista Series. Go to the website to find out more information over at pacificfoods.com. You just follow the link in the show notes. Again, if you want to level up your plant-based offerings in your cafe, then you need to be offering the Barista Series from Pacific. All right. Well, I'm really excited to present this conversation to you today because this is one that I've really wanted to cover on the show for quite a long time. In fact, this conversation today was recorded back in January, and we're just now getting around to putting it out there, trying to find the right time to do it. And I think this is the perfect time to talk about food in the cafe because food has been such a central part of a lot of coffee shops pivots into grocery or into baking and creating one-pot meals. A lot of people are experimenting with this where they haven't necessarily before, or they're amplifying what they've been doing in their cafe's food program to cover even more ground. So getting a great strategy for how to move forward successfully and do so in a way that resonates with your consumers and equals more sales, equals more momentum. And it's a symbiotic relationship, right? You're serving your community and they're in turn patronizing your business and loving what you're doing. I feel like the perfect person to talk about this is today's guest. Marilei Denila is the Culinary Research and Development Manager over at G&B and Go Get 'em Tiger in Los Angeles, California. And of course, Go Get 'em Tiger is an award-winning and internationally known roaster and coffee shop. It has just been setting the bar for quality, both in what they produce and the way they operate for quite a long time. And that includes the food. And behind much of that creativity and that success in the food program is Marilei Denila. If you ask the community in Los Angeles who has like the best burger or breakfast burrito or muffins or things like that, you're going to find that amongst the top choices, Go Get 'em Tiger is going to be one of them. And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, it's not an unsaturated market. And to be honest, and we have to admit, most coffee shops don't have great food programs. And so it's an accomplishment to both be recognized as a standard bearer for both coffee and food. And so how do you do that? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And we get into the nitty-gritty. We're talking about par levels. We're talking about systems, execution, tapping into the tastes of your community and executing well on those pieces of information. This is really a deep dive into building a successful and winning food program by one of our industry's best. Marilei herself has been working in the food industry since 2013, is trained at Le Cordon Bleu Culinary College in Los Angeles, and has been with Go Get 'em Tiger for just 3.5 years, but has done such amazing work. So again, we get to benefit from her knowledge in this conversation. And I think this is a perfect time to share this. So I hope that you find this informative and empowering to you as you seek to build a winning food program in your coffee shop. So let's get right to it. Here now is my interview with Marilei Denila of Go Get 'em Tiger. Marilei, welcome to Keys to the Shop. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, when I was thinking about the idea of food in the cafe, it's such a big topic. I mean, so many people do it, not great. And there are increasingly, thankfully, people who are doing it pretty well. Choosing who to talk to about this was kind of racking my brain for a while about it. And then it just occurred to me that, that I love the food program at Go Get 'em Tiger, and was put in contact with you, and just awesome work that you do there, by the way. Thank you so much. The burrito I had when I was there was just life-changing, so kudos. How did you get your start in food and come to direct the food program at Go Get 'em Tiger?
So I've kind of had a unique experience with food. I didn't follow any traditional path of working years and years in a line. I'm one of those people that I need to, change different topics all the time to kind of keep my interest. So I've had experience in catering, in tasting menu restaurants and bakeries, and then I've done teaching in customer service oriented things. And so I was recruited from a friend of mine to open up the Los Feliz location with a new food program, kind of a new approach to Go Get 'em Tiger. And it just kind of seemed to align with what kind of food I wanted to be doing with my life. And then the tie to customer service was pretty important to me. So I found myself there.
So when you came to Go Get 'em Tiger and you helped them open the Los Feliz location. Describe the food menu, because I know from our conversations before this conversation here that this was sort of a new direction for the menu, and you are like one of the people that was brought in to help make this a success make the food program a success in this new direction. So I wonder if you could describe a little bit about that and what you were responsible for.
So my friend was the head chef at the time, and she focused on a lot of like Filipino flavors, California cuisine, farmers market items, and we didn't really see a lot of that in the menu before. It was a lot of familiar cafe / like bistro and deli food, which completely was fine, but I think the decision to kind of move in the direction that we did was to kind of elevate the food, have it a lot more food that you can sit down and eat, have it more brunch, and just overall like upgrading the experience with food and coffee.
Right. Well, because standard fare for coffee bars, and I'm not familiar with what was before your tenure at Go Get 'em Tiger, but standard fare for most folks in coffee shops has to do with, muffins and just, I don't know, just like not a lot of savory things, maybe a lot of par-baked items.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was necessarily a lot of that going on, but that's kind of what we come to the table with, at least when I'm at like Coffee Fest or anything like that. The mindset is to sort of approach food from a perspective of, okay, let's just get this over with.
Yeah, pretty
because
much.
we
It was
want
just
coffee only.
right. And I think it was more of what is the minimum I can do to provide food in the coffee shop, like at the most minimum level. And so with the new food menu, it was just a little more thoughtful and a little more, how can we also bring great food to here with this great coffee?
Right. So when you say, okay, we're going to bring these new flavors and just kind of elevate the food options and have it be on par with the level of the coffee, which is excellent, you have a lot of direction you can go with that. And as the menu is elevated, it's not static. It changes over the course of time. So what's the framework of how you think about the menu that allows you to choose a direction? Because with food, it's kind of like saying what origin of coffee is the best origin.
Right.
There's so many. How do you narrow it down and say this is right for Go Get 'em Tiger, or is it just shop for shop?
So our first go it honestly wasn't perfect because we didn't know exactly what the customers really wanted. A lot of people have a lot of opinions where they say, "Oh, I want this on your menu," and it would be great if you had this. But so the first iteration, it was great food, but we just didn't work out the kinks in terms of incorporating it into our bar flow very well. And so that first iteration was, hey, we realized that people really want something interesting and they want to sit down and they want to try something new. And so when we did like a second go at it, which is like what our current menu is right now, that's been the most successful. So it's kind of finding that balance between going all in and then, transitioning from our old menu.
Okay, so you mentioned that it didn't work for the bar flow. I wonder if you could elaborate on that just a little bit and describe, because I'm getting that there's this direction that's based on the feedback of the consumer, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second here, but I'm interested to know, making it work for the people who are working, what does that look like? What did you fix with that second iteration that was sort of maybe a little dysfunctional with the first one?
So, a lot of the new items that when we had opened Los Feliz, they took a while to make, or they needed a little more technique that took time. or the combination of how many ingredients are on the line. A lot of it was either too much or too little. The biggest thing is a lot of our tickets took a long time because our guests were not used to the longer wait time, because our bar flow was, order anywhere you want, you get it really fast, and then you're out. So we kind of underestimated how long all of that whole transaction from ordering to, eating and leaving was going to take. And so when we reapproached we really had to figure out how we can get the food out as fast as possible, but still getting to do the dishes that we want.
So what was the secret? What was like the aha moment that made you think, okay, well, this is how we can do that?
So we cut down on how many ingredients we just had, on our line. We increased, the amount of prep that we could get ahead on. A lot of the things were done a la minute, and you couldn't do that anymore. And then just taking out things on the menu that really they were serving a small group of people, but it just wasn't selling. So we had to make those sacrifices. And then in terms of bar flow, we didn't know who was going to be like running the food, or, how fast is coffee going to get out before the food. And so we had to find that balance of making sure your coffee comes out and then your food comes out. And then that timing was pretty hard to get precise.
Okay. So when you're talking about a lot of prep work, is this stuff that's being done in the commissary kitchen, or is it stuff that's being done in the shop by the baristas, say by closers, or as a side item?
So that first go around, we did everything in shop, and then at that point we had 2 locations, so each shop was doing their own prep. So when we started the commissary, we tried to figure out what items can we bulk prep, and then which items are meant to be in the shop that are more fresh. And so that also helped design our menu in terms of, is this going to take a long time in terms of prep, or is it going to be functional, like how long it's going to last? And so that was the idea behind the second iteration, is how much can the commissary take care of before it gets to the shop.
Well, that's really sort of a lifesaver then, having that kind of a kitchen space. It almost seems like, most cafes would benefit from having, not everyone can have a commissary. You have one shop. If you have a space dedicated to a kitchen space specifically, it might be helpful. I guess maybe a question would be, is this in preparing food in the cafe, from your experience, is it best to kind of approach it from a separate business sort of perspective, like saying, okay, instead of having the baristas do this right along with, doing the tips at the mid shift or whatever else they're doing, to have separate shifts dedicated to kitchen only tasks?
I definitely think that's at some point we realized that you really just have to be using your labor to their best ability. And it's like, sure, this person can do this for me, but if I can get someone who does it 4 times faster, we're all going to win on that, because then they can do 3 more projects on top of that. So there was a point when we moved a lot of our drink prep over to the commissary as well. So they make all of our concentrates and all of our drink bases there too. And it was kind of impractical to just have every single shop doing the same thing at different times, when we probably cut the time in half by doing it in bulk.
Mm-hmm. And you also benefit from consistency because you have fewer people doing it.
Yes, that was also another factor, is that there was less spoilage. People weren't having different experiences, saying oh, this was sweeter at this shop, or oh, this tastes different at this shop. And so it definitely helped nail down the consistency and the ideal product.
So let's get back to the idea of the second iteration being a little bit more in tune with what people were looking for. As you and I were talking in preparation for this interview, you had mentioned that it is sort of a store-to-store process to learn kind of what the neighborhood wants. Instead of just saying, well, all the stores are going to have this, and I know there's an element of that, and I'd be interested to hear what that is, like what the most consistent things across all the stores are. But then there's this unique offering that you can have for a location because it has unique clientele. How do you go about discerning those levels of saying, okay, we're going to have this item at every store, but we're going to reserve this amount of space on the food menu to serve this unique community where our store is located?
So right now we kind of have a skeleton menu that we've decided is a nice, diverse menu that if this person doesn't want this person can have this. And so we pretty much apply that to all of our shops now. And then we leave a room for maybe 2 or 3 dishes that we know that is going to be highlighting that neighborhood. So at least for most recently at the Row, we have a way bigger lunch menu than we have at all of our other locations. And that's because, everyone that comes to that location is mostly office workers, and then people that don't arrive to that location until like after 11 a.m. And so if you don't consider those kind of things, then you're just selling to people who are not there.
And you're trying to satisfy this almost a projection of a person that, like you said, they're not there. You're sort of forecasting like, well, if we don't have this at this store, then what if this customer comes in and wants it and it's not there? But the opposite is true. If you don't have something that they want, they're not going to come back because you don't have it. So how do you go about researching that area? Is it just like trial and error, or looking into the demographics of the area and saying, okay, like you just said, here's a bigger lunch menu because people are on their lunch breaks, and so we want to serve them. But when you're in another community where it's not so easy to see that flow of traffic, and you're basing it on now just people's culture and their tastes, and to have that kind of a diverse menu that serves a specific group of people, what does that research look like? And when, after, how much research do you have to do before you pull the trigger and say, okay, this is what we're going to offer?
I definitely don't do, like an intensive, search on it. I mean, I'm not part of the where to choose the next shop, but the second I know where a next shop is, I already can start telling you that, okay, what are the closest things within a mile of that shop? And then I see how much foot traffic there is. I don't look at, I know there's like a walking score for every neighborhood. I don't have that, but I know, just being in LA for so long, if people walk around that neighborhood or not. And then I try to assess, do people come and visit that neighborhood, or is there an organic, community? And then in terms of like choosing what kind of food they want, that one is more like a trial and error, because, the food trends in terms of what people order, you just kind of have to wait to see if they add avocado to things, or if they order a side of potatoes with everything, or they always ask for no dressing, or something like along those lines.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, trial and error, but also it sort of lends a little bit more momentum to the idea of, you better be familiar with where you're going to open a coffee shop,
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do just go into a place and they see cheap rent and they just drop the shop in there. Then they have no idea about the community. That's a whole separate conversation about gentrification, et cetera. But it's great that you have that perspective, and you have this team of people like choosing a space, and then you're so familiar, how to serve the people that are there. The trends are an interesting thing, and I want to kind of look into that a little bit, because people as much as we are individuals, we also look on Instagram to see what's popular and try it out for ourselves. And so how do you approach having things that are trendy, or in, versus things that are unique?
I honestly don't look on social media as much as I probably could. I think I have the luxury of living in like Southern California, where I go to the farmers market twice a week, so I just already see what people are gravitating to. Of course, seasonal items, I know what that's really big in. So I don't play off of a lot of I don't want to say temporary, but things that I don't think will stick. I don't usually go to that because I focus more on like the ingredients, and then I give that option to customers if they want to, add cheese, or if they want to have it as a salad or something along those lines. I leave it to guests that they can customize it from there. But I think it's fair that I just kind of start with a base, and then it's open to interpretation from there.
Okay. So people want to go to a coffee shop and they want food. They're going to think of something that they expect to find in a coffee shop. How do you keep something on the menu that's familiar enough that people are naturally going to gravitate towards it without having to ask a bunch of questions, but unique enough that they can really only get it in your store?
It's funny because when I sit in the cafes, I hear so many people talk about our protein breakfast, which is just eggs, avocado, bacon, and some greens with like a lemon vinaigrette. And it's probably, that's the most basic combination, for breakfast.
Right.
But people talk about it because it tastes different than you would just be getting eggs, and bacon from somewhere else. So there was thought in the choice of bacon we chose, in the eggs we use, the most basic ingredients that we can use. And I don't like to manipulate a lot of things so much where you can't connect to your food. And to me, that's the biggest thing is, you go and get food to nourish yourself and to go enjoy yourself. And if you're not doing that, then like, what's the point? So when it comes to choosing the menu, if I'm menu testing something, if I can't relate to it in any way, then I kind of scratch it and I have to rethink how I'm going to do a dish. And so I've traveled a lot, and a lot of like cultural flavors really inspire me. And I'm not here to like replicate what that dish was, but I have to ask myself, how can I share this with someone in something that they can connect to, but also kind of try out as well. So that could be as simple as, doing fried potatoes, but introducing like a new sauce for them, or putting something on the side so that they can try it, or, doing like a baked egg dish, but here's like an interpretation that you just haven't done it like in that format. So yeah.
I love that. I love that perspective. And I just don't know what you do with that breakfast burrito, but it was so great when I had it. I think it was the Arts District store that I went to get that. But as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about how I take food for granted when it's the same. When you get the same type of food every day, you don't realize how well your palate knows something until somebody does something slightly different, and you immediately take notice. Almost like when you first have a cup of coffee that's been brewed properly, you're thinking, I don't even know what is different, but I like it.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with food. It's just like the more you eat different things, the more your brain kind of collects that knowledge and just starts keeping it in your brain, and you don't even know that you've acquired all of it. But but now you have this subconscious knowledge of what tastes good and what doesn't. And
then you end up with being a coffee shop and having one of LA's best burgers.
Yeah. And then that burger it's not very complicated, but you just have to ask, like, what is it in a burger that you value? Like I hate burgers where there's more than 4 ingredients in a burger. And just because there's more doesn't mean it will taste better. And so in our burger, we choose to highlight, again, the beef. We choose to highlight, like we make in-house pickles. And then the cheese, we specifically get it from the East Coast just because that's something we didn't willing to compromise on.
Wow. That's killer. That next time I'm in LA, this is the thing. So as we're talking about all of the standards and unique, just not spins, I won't say spins, but just like the thoughtful and mindful approaches to ingredients and wanting to share these unique food experiences with people. In the midst of that, of course, it's a business, and there's going to be some compromise somewhere when it comes to what you put on the menu for people to eat. Not saying you're not proud of things or anything, but I wonder, where have you had to say, okay, I know this is something that people want and we're going to give it to them? Like, has that been a part of the conversation?
Yeah. I mean, there's always that love-hate with avocado toast because it's probably your number one trending thing. I don't know if you're ever going to have a cafe menu without avocado toast on it. It's unfortunate that a lot of people choose not to inform themselves about the repercussions of how avocados are grown, how seasonal they are.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a choice that, that we've made. It's the same thing with like milk alternatives. We're in, with almond milk, with oat milk. It's kind of a choice you have to make with if you're going to survive or not. And I have seen a lot of chefs where they feel so righteous about things where they're not going to do it, or they're just so hard on not changing things. And I just feel like you're not going to accomplish anything by doing so. Because for me, the whole point of cooking is that you can share it with other people. And if you can't share this experience with someone, then like, what's the point? So that's how I feel about like compromise is, if you're going to cook it exactly like your food, then you're only going to serve such a small amount of people.
So move the ego out of the picture.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, there are definitely chefs out there that have very well accomplished that you go for them and their food specifically. But I chose Go Get 'em Tiger because I wanted to serve a mass of people and not just, a small amount of people.
It's kind of a gateway in a sense, like having a coffee on the menu that's a little bit more developed, and it might not be the one that you win a good food award for or something like that, but people that just want to try out coffee, and especially coffee bar, are kind of skeptical to get in there, and they're like, yeah, this is good. This is kind of good. And then they venture out and they end up buying crazy expensive coffees or fruity coffees. I can see like avocado toast being the gateway food for people to try other things on your menu.
Yeah. And well, even to highlight things. So, someone's going to go into a shop and get the avocado toast no matter what's on it. So right now I have pickled kohlrabi on there, and most people don't know what that is, but they're willing to try it because it's on their avocado toast. And it's doing so well. I was actually really nervous about that iteration, and it sells just as well as any of our other avocado toast. And I'm happy like that I got to share, that ingredient with someone who would have never tried that before.
Way to go. Nice. So with the logistics of doing this, the business side of this demands that you make money. You have to keep this going. You have to buy ingredients. You got to make a profit on this food somehow. And I know that not everything is going to be as profitable. And every menu item is not going to be as profitable. But when you're setting up a menu and you're looking at the ingredients, what kind of process do you go through logistically, or considering the financial implications of it? What are the constraints there? What are your benchmarks for something that's not only going to taste good, but is realistic in terms of, building a thriving business?
Yeah, we, more recently, I've tried to go through like prep items that can you be used more than once. So if you're, only doing this one thing for this one dish and it doesn't sell, then it's not of value. So the usage of the ingredients, how well rounded is it? Like, can I use it in more things? Like if I'm buying toast just for this one thing and it's not selling, that's not worth it. So I guess it's resourcefulness in the whole entire operation. It's pretty much if there's a cult following to it. And if it doesn't sell that well, but it's something that is pretty important to the guests that get it, we will keep it on the menu. And then of course, if we just kind of go through numbers, and if something is consistently not selling, like, less than 10 at any given time, then it's, up for consideration for a revamp or just taken off the menu.
Okay. So I wonder if you can share sort of the benchmark in terms of what kind of cost of goods are you looking at for your items? What's a benchmark of this is a healthy cost of goods and this is a healthy profit margin that we want to see on our food items? And of course, I know it varies item per item, as you were just describing, but what would you say is sort of the standard?
If you're in like really good shape, I think 25% is fair to hit, but right now 30% is kind of what we linger at, and I think we're fine with that because our community is so strong about our food that they get here. And of course, I try to make little edits here and there to get it lower. That is something that you shouldn't be comfortable with. You shouldn't be comfortable that we hit this every single time. So that's fine. It's more like, okay, well, what can we do to either, increase our sales, or we need to refigure out some of the food costs. And more recently, like at the commissary, I just did like a audit of everything that we're doing. And it's, like, is this a product we can sacrifice, or how can we make this better to just, to get that food cost down? If something is only used once, then
Right.
it's probably on the chopping block. And I regularly visit all the shops. So I ask them, like, what's not moving? What are you wasting? What is your shop at your trend? Like, I just put a vegan sandwich on the menu because we don't have any, but it's not selling that well. So it's not worth it for us. And so what can we do to feed that community without having us waste that product? And so I try to check in weekly with everyone to see what's moving, what's not moving,
Mm-hmm.
and try to change it as fast as I can.
So you're talking to the managers of the stores and asking them, are they writing it down? Are they putting it in like a log or something?
They don't have a log per se, because I have a back end view of their sales and what they're ordering. And so I just ask them, how do you feel about like this product? We also have kitchen leads in all of our shops, and because they're there in the kitchen every day, I check in on them to see, like what's your most popular item this week, or what's not. And we always try to get salmon on the menu, and salmon is one of those things that it's an alternative to meat. But are we a shop where people seek salmon? And so we just cut it off our menu. It was on a salad. It did pretty well, but can I sell more using a different protein? And when I think about lox on bagels, are we a location that wants to do that, or are you going to go somewhere else for that lox and bagel? So those choices, or those understandings, dictate what is on and off the menu too. So that salmon, it was only used for one dish, and I would try to use it for other things. But it just wasn't working. So, I had to make that call that we should take it off the menu.
Yeah, that makes sense. Salmon swim upstream, So now when you're talking about the food that enters the cafe, and there's standards for service of food, and lots of different systems exist for measuring the freshness of an item, and the timing of when this is good and when this is not good. How do you go about determining the lifespan of an item once it's delivered and I assume you're delivering from the commissary to the store. Like, how do you determine the use-by date, if you will, of an item, or how long it should stay on a shelf or in a fridge?
Usually that just happens when I'm like menu developing, and I really just do it day by day and taste it and know when something is pretty like shelf unstable.
Right.
And just naturally, like dairy products are not shelf stable. We are like our waffle batter, that's, a short shelf life. So I did create a guide for the shops that they have a shelf life guide. So once it's received, this is when it needs to expire. And then the expectation for all of the kitchen leads is that they need to be checking their products daily when they get in, and then make that call if the product is bad.
With the kitchen leads, I've not heard that before. I mean, we're having somebody basically deputized to be a manager or quality control person for the food in the cafe is what it sounds like. What kind of training do you give to the employees, not just the kitchen lead in the cafe, but when people are briefed on new menu developments and handling food, et cetera? Like, take us through the process of saying, okay, well, we're introducing this new item. Now what? How does everybody become informed enough to sell it well and take care of it well?
Yeah, so that's exactly like what I do now, where I've created a system of first, the menu development happens, then I let, all the managers and the kitchen leads know, like, hey, this is a new item that is going to be on your menu. I send out samples of everything, and then I train the kitchen leads so that they can train their staff, and then also let their staff taste all of the new stuff. And that usually is a week or 2 weeks to just get them all trained up. And then I let all of the staff know that, hey, this is going to happen on this day. Please use your kitchen lead as a resource for this product. And then from there, the kitchen lead kind of takes over and lets that roll out.
That's great. I love hearing that 2 weeks time frame, because that a lot of cafes, the way they roll things out, whether it's a new coffee drink or a new food item, is 2 days. Developed in secret and then plopped on your counter.
Exactly. So that by the time I let all of staff know, there's no gray area. And I create these little food guide. I have a food guide with every single dish that's on our menu. And it's all the information you'd ever want, which is every ingredient, how much of it goes into the dish, how to pick up the dish when you're in the cafe. And it tells you all the allergens, and then, what the dish is supposed to look like. So, bigger operations, that's a standard at those locations. And this is probably our first go at it of having like one unified food guide that is a resource for all the cafes.
Man, I'll tell you that I wish every mom and pop, and however big they are, every drive-through had something like that. No matter their size, they could totally benefit from that.
I was really, it was really important to me that we made like an allergen guide. So I also have a separate guide just for allergens. And that's, every single ingredient that is in everything we ever make. So whether that's garlic goes into here, dairy, and it's all coded for all of that. Just because we have because we're a coffee shop, there's so many different people that come in there that, if you're going into a Mediterranean restaurant, there's probably going to be garlic and everything and onion. So you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But because we're a coffee shop, we have so many different people come in that I just want to make sure that all of the staff have the resources to inform whoever that, hey, there's, we may use this with nuts, or hey, there's soy in here and stuff like that. And so I have that accessible for staff as well.
Great. So that mentality is you're just forecasting what possible questions not only could customers ask about the food, and let's put that in a guide, but also like what possible things do the staff need to know, or could they ask, or do they need to know? And before it becomes a problem, just kind of sitting down and thinking about that and forecasting what everybody needs before you launch an item.
I definitely, I give like an options guide of how you can change this into a salad, how you can take this out if this can't be taken out of the dish. So I already know I approach it with how is someone going to try to edit this?
Right.
And, and then it's a clear, hey, you can't change this part, just so you know. And then, of course, giving the options of letting guests know, like, oh, if it's avocado toast, you can always put it on top of greens or, stuff like that. So with those little food guides, there are like alternative formats for all the dishes.
This whole conversation seems like a lot of work.
I know. I think it's probably really unique to my personality as well. I don't think you see a lot of chefs and like cooks that are that invested in really informing anyone about their food. They just want to cook food and that's it. But to me, it's education is like really big part of like who I am, and I just want to make sure that people are understanding like the food that they're going to go eat. And I think with Go Get 'em Tiger, we've gotten a lot of people who are invested in knowing about their coffee. So our clientele is like the right people that also want to know what food they're eating.
The idea that it's a lot of work is great in that I think that no matter who's listening to this, the temptation to think of this as something that you can just, like we said in the beginning, the mentality is like, well, let's just get the menu done. Let's fix it and forget it. So much momentum, so much, profit is left on the table. So many great experiences are missed for lack of informing people, for not thinking through, for not researching, and just all the things that you've shared. If people would just incorporate even a little bit of that in the way that they approach their menus now, that would just change the game. And even though it's a lot of work to begin with, it seems like you all, for example, are just reaping the rewards of all of that work up front in the way that people enjoy food in your cafe.
Yeah, I definitely, every time I go into a cafe, I look at how they set everything up. And then I see how, their staff like works in that space. That's how my brain is just like on auto to notice those things. And if you're a business and you don't notice those things, then I also question, like, was doing food the right move for you if, you weren't aware of those circumstances?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a question for you. It's our final question, and this has really been super informative. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. If someone wants to start a food program, or let's say they want to do another iteration of their existing food program, maybe they're eating that food right now and they're nodding as they're listening, going like, yeah, we need a new food program. What would you advise them to do initially to start off? Like, what would your best advice to them be going forward, both to do and to be careful not to do?
I think you have to really commit to the idea that you are opening up a whole new, realm of business. And, coffee and food, they work together, but they also work against each other at times. And so if you're going to do food, you have to really commit to making it the best that you want it to be. And I think a lot of people try to do the minimum that they can to get food into their shops. And then they end up making a lot of bad choices because they kind of cheated out on that expansion. And it can be really good for you as if you really just commit to making your resources in the cafe like really strong. And so if you're going to just say, I'm just going to get this like toaster and I'll make do, then you weren't really committing to, serving your guests what they wanted. You just wanted to have that option, which is fine. But if you are looking for that next level thing, you really have to say, I'm going to do this. And I'm also going to listen to my guests.
Yeah. So important. That right there is why we're in business. And if, again, we apply just a little of what you've told us so far, we're going to be doing so much better. And again, thank you, Marilei, for sharing all of this information, and highly encourage anybody who's out there in LA to check out Go Get 'em Tiger and all of this food that Marilei has, developed for you. And it's amazing stuff. And this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope, I hope my little tidbit of information helped in some way.
Well, I so appreciate this conversation because it not only provides us with a mindset and a foundation to launch from, but a lot of how-to and a lot of technical knowledge that would allow us to execute those ideas well. And I especially love the emphasis on making sure that what we're offering in the cafe is in line with what your consumers want, tapping into their needs and constantly being open to feedback, paying attention to the numbers on the baked goods, on the food, and making sure that it's a living thing. And it's not just something that we're doing forever and ever and we just stick with it because we're being obstinate. We need to be open to feedback and to change, and making sure that what we offer in the cafe is resonating with our communities who are coming to our cafe. So again, so many great things in this conversation. I hope that you took notes and are going to be able to apply some of these things very quickly in your cafe. Thank you, Marilei, so much for joining us on the show. It was a pleasure to talk to you. We really appreciate the work you do and how you've helped us out today. Now, if you want to learn more information about Go Get 'em Tiger, you're in the Los Angeles area and want to experience this for yourself, just go to their website, GGET.com. That stands for Go Get 'em Tiger, GGET. And you will not be sorry. It's one of my favorite coffee and food experiences in Los Angeles for sure. So be sure to check them out. So now, if you want to contact me with any questions, comments, feedback about the show, or you want to learn more about Keys to the Shop consulting and whether it's a good fit for you in your business, I would love to talk to you. Just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. Always love hearing from the Keys to the Shop community. Again, that's chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that is the end of our episode. Thank you so much again for taking the time to listen. I appreciate all of you. I hope that this helps you build some great food programs for your customers. And of course, as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.